And that right there is the secret to life. Yes, we are live for the very first Triple T of 2024. Welcome to Triple T number 105. Wow. Holy smokehouse, Papa. Yes, here we are. And this is happening and all the above. Thank you all for tuning in and for everybody on YouTube. Hi, Mom. My name is TJ Zill. I call myself a professional problem solver, which I always follow up with, no, I don't know everything. I just have a unique way of asking questions, helping people find solutions to their questions, their answers, their challenges, issues, and all the above. I do offer all sorts of services, corporate coaching, working with athletes from beginner all the way up to professional. I've got a website, thetswb.com, the tall skinny white boy.com. Yes, that's actually what it stands for. I do offer a free 30-minute consultation. That is 30 minutes for you to ask me anything. If you have challenges, we can see if I'm a fit. If I am a fit, I'll let you know. If I'm not a fit, I will let you know. And I will help find somebody that can help you, because that's what my main goal is, to help people live better lives. Those again on YouTube, if you would do all the YouTube stuff, click the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave comments, comment on your comments, comment on other people's comments. Let's all have comment fun, because I like to read them. And just before we got on camera, somebody noticed that I was a little more dressed up than usual. And that's because for Christmas, I got some more ties for Christmas gift. I now have probably at least 70 or so ties. And so my wife Tina said, why don't you wear a different tie for each different Triple T? So tonight is my internationally famous, everybody has seen this around the world. It's been in Australia teaching, training. It's been to Canada. Where else? It's been to a lot of different places. So I figured it would be appropriate to do the first Triple T with a tie with a little poo on it. Got a little poo on my tie, but it'll probably be fine. So here we are, brand new year. Who's got stuff to share from the last big 7 days before we jump into our topics? Anybody got anything exciting they want to share?
I'll jump in real fast. I will say it's been an amazing week. I kind of feel like I had this major breakthrough and just kind of like this geyser of questions. So we'll see what we get to this week, and I'll hold on to them for other weeks too. But I'm really excited for that. So
Whoop, whoop. Right on. And it's really good to see some familiar faces here. Thank you for popping in, Jade, Mark, Elijah, and of course, Lenora, the anchor, and Holly. You guys are awesome. And then comes Kevin. Right on. Starting off the new year with a bang. I am a happy man. Anybody else got anything they want to share from the past 7 days, or should we jump right into topics?
I did notice that, I know we were talking before we popped on the call, and I did enjoy the holiday season. Super wonderful. And I am also very, very excited to be back into what I would consider my flow and being in alignment and having way more control over things. So I, for one, am thrilled that it's January 2nd.
Awesome. And actually, we're going to kind of touch on what you just brought up in our topics of the week, which are recap on resolutions, reset schedules, attracting and shedding, and if we have some time, we're going to touch on after holidays health. So, without any further ado, recap on resolutions. Now, last week we touched on resolutions because yesterday was the big day when everybody has waited all year long. Hey, Savo. Everybody's waited all year long so that they could decide something new they want to try or something old they want to try again or whatever to change their life. And they've waited all year instead of deciding to try to start it on like Tuesday. But nevertheless, here we are, January 1st is hit. People are putting down resolutions. And I've talked to a couple of clients today about their resolutions and wanting to push it out to what does that look like January 1st, 2025? Instead of making the simple statements that I've heard so many times that I think we're just too shallow. I want to lose weight. Well, okay, but what does that mean, and what is going to get you to do it properly and to reach your goal, and not only just reach your goal, turn around and then go right back to where you came from? If you go a year out, describe what your body looks like. What has changed in your life to be able to maintain that? What does your workout routine look like realistically? What have you changed in your diet over the years? And what are your goals throughout the year? And then you go into, I said, get yourself a year calendar, a 1-year day planner, and you write down the story of what has happened in your life during 2024 as though you are sitting there January 1st, 2025. Here's what my year had in store. Here's what I've accomplished. And then you open up the calendar and you start putting in reminders to check in. If losing weight is your goal, you may want the first 3 months until a good habit is set in place. If your goal, if one of your deals that you're talking about on January 1st, 25 is about the business that you've put together, well, it's just like building a house. You don't go, yes, I built a house. It just magically, boom, I turned around and poof, it was there. Now you can buy one, but in changes for our lives, it's not always as easy as going out and just buying the change. It takes work. So just like building a house on a new piece of land, there's clearing the land, prepping the land, laying the foundation. You got to have some type of blueprint of how it's going to be built. And then you'll have timelines where you should be in order to move in time. You'll want to do the exact same thing for 2024 so that you can meet up to the story that you're going to have that you get to realize on January 1st, 2025. It's also the same type of application I have for triple P, Perfect Partner Protocol, for my relationship clients. When I tell them that they're basically going to take a year off from being in a committed relationship, because they have to work on themselves first. Well, I've been working on myself. Then why aren't you in that relationship? Well, I've been waiting for so long. Why another year? Do you want to settle for second rate and have it now? Or do you want to put in the work for a year and get exactly what you deserve and what you're looking for? And I was talking to somebody today, and they pointed out that with triple P, you find your partner by discovering yourself. And that's why I have my clients have a journal. Well, you guys know me well enough. 3 journals: your person, your tribe, your sources of income. 3 separate journals to redesign your life. And in your story of January 1st, 25, you get to be vaguely specific. You guys have heard me say that before. So that you have some room to move into to navigate towards this goal. And I challenge you guys to set some goals that might kind of seem a little like, whoa, that's a little steep. But I would prefer that you go and shoot for the stars and hit the moon, rather than shoot for something that you could fall over and touch.
Can I say something about that?
Yes, please.
Michelangelo said, it's not a problem if you aim too high and you miss it, but if you aim too low and you reach it.
Yes, exactly. And I love how Jade shared that had a friend that waited 3 years, and on the third met a beautiful woman, got married, and has a child now, and so glad he waited. Yes. Because now I'm going to challenge that just a little bit, Jade. If you're sitting around, not working on yourself, not doing anything to improve yourself, and it took you 3 years to meet this person, did they get everything that they could have gotten? Have you become everything that you could have? One of the things with Triple P, yes, he was building his life, is when they're doing their journal for their person, I have them describe everything in intimate detail as though they've already been with them, know them intimately for 5 years. Where they grew up, what they look like, what they drive, where they shop for groceries, what do they do for fun, all of the above, because there'll be something in there that you can start working on yourself or doing yourself to grow or be in the places where your person is going to be. If your person is a dancer, maybe it's a good time this year to take dance lessons. If your person enjoys fishing, well, this might be the year where you actually book a couple of fishing excursions. And I challenge you guys, I can't remember the person who brought this up, but there was a Instagram reel where he talked about you should have one event a month planned and one epic year, what do you call it? Yeah, there you go, Jesse Itler. 1 year defining event. And you don't have to know all the absolute intimate details of what that 1 year defining event is, as long as you know that there will be one. And you plan one out as such. And if that's vacationing to a country that you haven't been to, you don't have to know the country, but if that's what you're looking forward to being your once a year, or you're defining, you get to look at your calendar and go, okay, if that's going to happen, what would be the best time of year to have that happen? By the way, in case you guys noticed a little white bobbing thing, our grand dog just helped himself in and is going, I thought there was more going on in here than there is. Right, Finner? Now he's like, okay, this is boring. I want to get out. You know, dogs, let me in. I got to go out. Let me out. I got to come in. Any input, ahas, epiphanies on that while I let the boy out quick? Here you go.
I had popped in the chat. Oh, sorry, Holly. Go for it, Holly.
Holly?
Oh, I'm saying you go first. You started first. Sorry.
No, the other thing I was going to say is I had popped in the chat to write it down. Even when you think they're smaller, it's not that big of a deal because you forget. And then you're like, oh, when did that happen? And you have the ability to look back and say, oh, that happened. Oh, I did that. I did that too. And it's really just reinforcing to yourself the steps that you're taking and the progress that you're making.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing that. Holly?
Okay, so I kind of have a follow-up question about the dating protocol specifically. And I'm thinking about it in terms of, all sorts of other relationships too, as we've discussed. But I'm discovering that, staying out of a committed relationship for a year is no big deal for me. That's not even remotely hard. But I guess what's the question is, what's the next step? And it was helpful, don't get me wrong. But what's the next step to actually challenge myself and get different results?
I would say that the part there, because I do have a couple of clients who came to me with the exact same story as what you just described. You take the description of who your ultimate person is. Your ultimate person, not close enough, not kind of like the best mix of a couple. Your ultimate person. And you put yourself in places where they might be. One of the analogies that I came up with was, what's the easiest way to catch a butterfly? Chasing is the hardest way. Anybody ever try to catch a butterfly? Yeah, you can run and chase and wear yourself out until you can't breathe, you're tired. And then what happens? You sit down and the flippin' butterfly comes over, lands on your nose and goes, about time. Well, in the same way, you identify what type of butterfly is the one that you want. And then you identify where do they hang out. And then you make sure that you're there and you're available. And you don't go there and just sit and go, all right, okay, someday there'll be a butterfly here. you still make a life that's worth living. Kevin, plant flowers that the butterfly prefers. That's building your life that would attract the butterflies. If you're after a certain type of monarch and you find out that they're only in this state, well, if that's the one you really want and you're 4 states away, you may not have to move there, but you may want to go visit a couple of times. And you don't go visiting expecting to come home with the monarch. You go there because that's where they are. And you make sure that while you're there, you have as much fun as you can, so it's still a memorable trip. And if that fun, memorable trip has a monarch sit on your nose and wants to go home with you, epic trip! But too many people just say they would, oh, I don't know, I'll just take an insect, whatever. That's why I brought it up, Kevin. Kevin's like, the monarch is the state insect of Texas. Just saying. I'm like, yes.
Okay, follow up to.
What's that?
Sorry, you could finish what you were saying.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that definitely gives me some things to work on. I am realizing though that even though there's definitely a lot of stuff I could continue to do in that area, I have to a certain extent done some of that stuff. I'm just wondering if the results don't seem to be any different. Is there something else that should be happening on top of all of that?
Yes. Have you changed at all in the last year or two?
Absolutely.
Is your person possibly changing in the last year or two?
Absolutely.
If they weren't ready, you wouldn't want to meet them. If you weren't ready, they shouldn't meet you.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you keep working on yourself, not just for the intention of them or any. You work on yourself for you, but you use the journal almost as a recipe guide for, if I really want this person, if I want this type of person, this is what I'm really looking for, this feels right, this is what I want. Then you look in the mirror and go, and what could I improve? I'm not flawed, I'm not broken, but is there anything that this person I've just described would like even more in me? And you improve yourself in that department, and you continue until you meet that person to live life the most fun, fulfilling, awesome way that you can. And in doing so, my clients are finding out they're pretty damn cool. And they don't really need somebody to complete them. They're looking finally for someone to join them. They're looking for somebody that fits the description of awesomeness that they want to be around. And because that person is so flippin' awesome, they challenge themselves to become so flippin' awesome. It's a win-win. And I tell my clients, take yourself off of dating apps. Do you really, meeting people isn't as hard as people think it is. We meet people all the time. If your challenge is saying hello to a stranger, that may be something that you work on this year. January 1st, 2025, I've said hello to 300 people, 300 strangers, people I've never met. I just walked up and said, hello, hi. One of my clients met her person in a Sprouts because even though she didn't shop at a Sprouts before, it just came to her, that's where her person shops for groceries. So she started shopping at Sprouts and went, hey, this is kind of a cool store. Said hi to somebody over a cucumber or an organic head of lettuce, and they started talking. But that is where she was just told that's where her person shops for groceries. Oh, great and cool runnings. Thank you for sharing that, Elijah. Out of Cool Runnings, if you've ever seen that. Darius, a gold medal is a wonderful thing, but if you're not enough without it, you'll never be enough with it. Become the person that deserves the person that you're asking for. And step up, not even or down. Don't step down for a partner. Work on yourself and step up. Your person is out there. I know. I guarantee it. The people that have challenged me on that, I'm like, well, what have you done to improve yourself in the last 3 months? What do you mean? What have you done to improve yourself in the last year? Well, where have you looked? Well, I was on this dating app, like Tinder. Oh yeah, great, a hookup, bang it app. That's where I'd want to find somebody. If you can order a custom car, I mean, absolutely no holds barred, it's already paid for. Would you just say, give me a used rental out of the cheap lot? No, you would put down exactly what you're looking for, the color, the interior, the amenities, all the above that fits you. And if that's a Geo Metro, I'm not judging. And if you're a jacked up four-wheel drive, mudslinging, loud exhaust, I'm not judging. But make sure it's something that you want to drive for the rest of your life. Jade.
Just wanted to add in too, I think, the self-development journey really, when you attract that person, all of the stuff that's been sort of in there in the subconscious that hasn't been, brought up yet because you're not in that relationship will also come up. And so I think that, attracting that person's one thing, and then being with that person brings a whole nother, more and more layers coming up to the surface so that you can actually create the relationship that you're wanting as well by continuing to develop yourself in the direction. So I think, that's another half of it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I'm so glad you brought that up, Jade. I appreciate that. Holly.
Sorry to keep having follow-up. By the way, I'm loving all of this. Thank you. Is it possible, and I'm just, trying to think, it may not be possible, that you could be the person, a good enough person, you're ready, whatever, they are ready, you even are in the place that they're in, you even talk to them, but there's still something else that needs to happen. Like, if those things happen, is it guaranteed that it will turn into a relationship, or are there other steps that
Well,
might be necessary to make something happen?
Elijah put in the perfect answer, ABT, always be testing. And that's why I have my clients commit to 1 year of no committed relationship, because it's a year of research. And the other thing that it does when you commit to a year of research, all of a sudden you start looking at people differently. I tell them, look at, if it's a female looking for a guy, I said, look at and study every single guy that you're around. Young, old, married, single, gay, straight, doesn't matter, as research to start figuring out your values and criteria and put that into your book of analysis, so that at the end of the year, your journal of your person has a full description. Now, if you bump into them after a year and all your research has you looking at them going, wow, right height, right eye color, right groceries in the grocery cart, smells good, no ring, says they're single. This is where you have to be ready to say, hello, you're interesting. I'd like to get to know you better. And you can't just sit there and go, oh, there he is. I watched him walk in the store. I waved at him. And that was it. And I sat there and watched him buy groceries. And then I watched him pay. And then I watched him walk out to the car that I had written down in the journal that he drives. It was the exact car. And then he drove away. And I never went back to that store. You have to do a little bit. I mean, if I told one person, if you want to manifest winning the lottery, you do have to buy a lottery ticket or two. So
Here's a piece of practical advice from my personal life. One of the things that I wasn't aware of in the past, one of the things that I didn't do well enough in the past is clear communication around what they expect, what the woman I am with expects, and then what my expectations are. And whatever label we put in, we say, okay, we are exclusive, but we are not in a relationship. Like, what does that really mean to her? And what does that mean to me? And so let's say if a person goes to me, well, it feels really good to be exclusive and just to see how things go. And then some months go by and nothing goes anywhere. And I want to know in the meanwhile, if the person goes, oh, I stopped looking, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be in agreement with that. Because why would I stop looking if I'm not sure what I have, and if they know really what they want. So the communication, I think it's really important. And also, yeah, you mentioned Tinder earlier. I think I went on Tinder like one time many years ago, and I didn't like it because it's not something that I was looking for. And then I found this app. So this started maybe like 3 years ago, Facebook dating, and I think it's very useful. In fact, I think if when I went on there, a friend of mine actually, my friend who is a guy, he took my phone and he goes, "Oh, let me see your dating app," and he goes through it, and he goes, "Oh, well, you didn't put this," and it's like a part of me that I consider like gold. And he goes, "You didn't put that." And I go, "Oh yeah, that's true. I can put that." And he goes, "What about this part?" And this part is more like a part of shadow part that I hide. And so it was really hard for me to put that part. But by putting everything out there, it just makes it so much easier to continue that conversation. And there's a lot of people that match, and a lot of people with different kinds of intentions. But if just being honest cuts through the bullshit, truth cuts through the bullshit. So that and communication, I would say.
And I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you for sharing that. And that's part of when you understand, when you've got that journal written out, it's going to be a lot easier for you to communicate with that person as well. One, if they're that much of a match, you're going to feel like you already know them.
Mhm.
And two, you already know what you're looking for, hands down. A lot of them, well, I'll know when I see it. No, you won't, because you'd already have it. And I like what Elijah, I'll be right with you, Jade. What Elijah shared here is I missed 100% of the shots that I didn't take. And frankly, I missed many that I did take too. There are no guarantees in life. It's constant adapting and growing and recognizing and acting upon opportunities, all the while knowing that your worth is unmatched and that you are still amazing and living an amazing life, even if and while it takes longer sometimes. Yes, that some things in life are worth waiting for. And Jade, you also want to share what you put in the comments there as well? Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. I think if we look at it from a sort of law of attraction type of perspective, when we look at a more energy state, if we're looking and we're searching and we're wanting, we're in a state of lack. And I think something that the journaling really helps with is when we're writing what it is that we want, while we're writing, we're actually tapping into, by imagining it, the state that we would be in if we had it right now. And so I think using hypnosis to really envelop yourself in the state as if you're experiencing it right now, how good that would feel by holding that state. You're a match to what it is that you're wanting to create, whatever that is. You become that. And so I think that portion of it is super, super important, because how are you going to know when you're in that relationship that you really want? You're going to feel it, right? You'll know because you feel it. And that other person will know as well because they feel it. And so there's an energetic match going on that has a lot to do with feeling, and feeling is that energy that we're holding. So I just wanted to mention that.
I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you, Jade. And Lenora, you had your hand up. Mike.
I love this group. You guys are absolutely amazing. I could not love this group more if my life depended on it, but give me a couple minutes and I'm sure it'll happen. So I was somebody who, many, many years ago, I watched the movie The Secret, and I decided to take it and run with it. And I wrote everything down in a journal. And I remember thinking, I don't care. I'm just going to write it out. And then somewhere along the line in my life, when things didn't work out and I would try to write it down, I would get in this argument. Like my body would, or my stomach would get in an argument with my heart and my head. And it became very, very chaotic to journal. And I love, Jade, every time you talk about manifesting, I think it's so exquisite because you just come from such a radiating place. And I can feel myself going, but, and I'm like, no, just listen, just listen. And if you can get to the space of, I'm gonna, for a month, I'm gonna, write in my journal about all these characteristics, because I used to think I'd have to write it in one shot. But if you could just play with it for a month and keep just writing stuff down and just allowing yourself to be playful and only go in when you're playful and creating that energy and then feeding it and noticing it. And if you are feeling that resistance, I am also somebody who is a super massive proponent, supporter of reaching out to people and saying, "Hey, I'm struggling with this. I'm having a really big argument with myself and I can't get around it." And that is something that has made a massive, massive difference in my life. And I know I've reached out to each of you and on a variety of different things, and you've all been spectacular. So if you ever feel like you're blocked, by all means, reach out to other people, and I'm here to fully support you in any way. I feel like that's everybody in the group, but that's just me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Lenora. And real quick, before I get to Holly and Jade, I want to, the journals for my clients, I let them know that this isn't a one and done. In fact, my new clients for the first 3 months, I have them at least once a week go through and start from the very beginning, read everything that they've written down, because things will change. Their subconscious will go, no, that one's not right. And I've got a quick story to share with you, and then I'll get to you, Holly. One of my clients wrote down that her person, it's the same one that met him in Sprouts, her person had a black four-door BMW. And while she was going through her list, all of a sudden, one day she was like, no, it's a red one. Scratched out black, wrote in red, da 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 da. And it wasn't too long later that she met the guy, and they agreed to go have lunch together. So he comes and picks her up in a red BMW, and she's like, oh, woo. Gets in the car and goes, wow, this is a really nice car. He goes, yeah, I like it. I just got it. I used to have a black one. She said she almost soiled herself right there on his beautiful leather seats. I said, that's why you keep going through. They are growing as you are growing. They're still living a life. You're still living a life. Holly.
Okay, perfect. So definitely lots of great advice, but a lot of this advice kind of assumes that you actually have people in your life that you are dating, that you are testing, that you are learning from at all. Maybe not. Maybe I'm completely missing it. I guess where I'm coming from is I don't know how meeting somebody even turns into a date. Like, that is not something that I've ever understood. I mean, I've been lined up 3 times in my life. I've always put it out there. I'm happy to be lined up. I met one person after a year of, I was really, really committed. I'm going to talk to every single person on here. I got 1 date with that person, and then there's 2 times that they probably weren't really dates, but I like to pretend they were. And that's like my entire dating history right there.
Yep.
For my whole life. Like, so I could go for a year and say I'm not going to be any dates, but I won't go on a single date that year. Is that a problem, or is that what it's supposed to be?
Do me a favor. Stop worrying about the label of date.
Okay, well, what would it look like if it doesn't have the label of date on it?
Well, if I wasn't married, you and I have been lucky enough to have some fun, spend some time out at classes and all this stuff. And I think you're amazing. I would try and generate more ways to spend time with you. Eventually, we would manufacture enough reasons to spend time together.
Yeah, that's not something that's extremely familiar to me either, but
Yeah,
it
but
does, at least kind of in principle, it makes sense.
Yeah, but that's why
So.
I tell my clients for the first year, they are not to be in a committed relationship. They're not dating. They're spending time with people. And as they spend time with people in new groups and go out and do things, whatever that means, yes, you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone to figure out a way to do an activity around human beings that doesn't involve being inside of your house or inside of your cubicle at work. You do have to, unless, you know, that if you give the universe the opportunity for you to be around people, it's the same way as I said, if you say that you're going to win the lottery, at some point you will have to go out and buy a lottery ticket. Well, I'll just have a friend buy one for me. Well, that's like going on a blind date then. But I would prefer that it be organic. And I don't want to get too far away from Jade's input and question. So Jade, go ahead.
I didn't have a question, but I just wanted, off of what Holly said and what Lenoir said, that I think was a super important piece is just,
Please.
so let me start with what Lenoir said. So she said when she was writing down and journaling, there were these thoughts that were coming up. And if we just sit and envelop ourselves in the experience of what we want, all of those thoughts, all of the emotions that have been in the way of what we're really wanting are going to come up. And even if we keep getting distracted, if we pull ourselves back to just enveloping ourselves in the experience, again, all that stuff's going to start coming up. And I think that it's really important to pay attention to, because those are the things that have been blocking you from having what you want. And so it might be the thought of I'm not good enough, right? And so if that thought comes up, then it's important to look at that thought and to find out where it's coming from. When did you very first have that thought and idea, so that you can begin to change the beliefs that you're holding that are causing you to not experience what you're really wanting. The other part of it, as far as what Holly said, that I think is really important, is the clarity. As far as, what it is that we're wanting. You said you don't know, what a date would look like or how someone even asks you on a date. Well, that can be very individual for every single person. And so I think the better question is more, how would I want that to happen? And how would that person interact with me? How would I know? And so it might be as simple as I decide to go on a hike, and someone on that hike smiles at me and decides to walk next to me. So again, like, it doesn't have to look a specific way. It's more of you just tapping into, like, what would I like to experience? And then all of the details of that. And so what you're doing is you're giving your brain a sort of GPS point so that it knows the direction that you're going. And then, of course, however it gets there is how it gets there. But all along the way, while you're holding the emotion or energy of your GPS point, all the stuff that's in the way of that is going to start to come up. So you want to start to look at those things so that you can break them down and process those emotions so that you can continue getting to that place where you're going to experience what's really wanted. But you have to keep holding it and notice when anything knocks you out of that feeling or that state, so that you can take a look at it and begin to move it out of the way so that you can move even deeper into what you're really wanting.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jade. Sabo.
I just wanted to say that really the key, if we can, in a nutshell, express this, is what TJ said when it comes to labeling something and calling it dating. And then, and just going to give you a quick explanation of that in my own life. when I'm single, what I do is I open myself up to possibilities. TJ was talking about going to the store, going to different places, different events, and also all the social media and dating websites. I actually think dating websites can be really great. It depends what you want. You choose the website, and you also really put as much as you can about yourself, including videos and including pictures, description, the best you can. And the more I put myself out there, the more I see these possibilities in my mind, to where I talk to a woman in the store. She's buying similar groceries that I'm buying, and then there's this little chat. Like, it doesn't really mean it's gonna go anywhere, but in my head there is like these infinite numbers of pathways that this can lead to, me giving her a number if she's looking for a car, or if she's looking for, maybe something else that I do in terms of martial arts sessions, things like that, or events, and be like, hey, here's my number, give me send me a text if and then we can do this and that, whatever. But it's always in every aspect of my life, I think about possibilities, and it's really interesting how fast I find many opportunities of people who I really like to spend time with. And then one of the things that really works for me recently, what I realized in these, whatever you can call dating and relationships, it's like I don't really get connected to one person and they say, okay, I'm going to exclude everything else. I really leave the possibilities open. And it's because it's not what I'm looking for, is not the person. It's not a perfect person. Even if there is one out there, it's the feeling they give me. So what's the feeling that I get when I'm with them? And if I'm missing something, I can still have something with that person and something else with another person. So it really, that open mind is like a parachute, it always works. And you know, and if mind is closed, it's not going to work, just like a parachute.
That's right. Thank you for sharing that, Salvo.
For sure, man.
Fran said that she got to do a little bit of a walkabout and may drop in and out, but I wanted to share with you, Fran. Um, I shared this earlier. I'm wearing a tie now, because I got some for a Christmas present. Now I've got about 70, and my wife suggested that I start wearing a different tie for each triple T. I started with this one because this is the one that I was wearing when I did the training in Australia. This is the one that you saw me in when I got to become an international trainer, and I wore it because I was hoping you would be here. So I put on some poo on my tie for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much, and I remember the tie.
Internationally famous tie. And I wanted to, wow, this topic really blew up. I'm so glad that it did. I'm going to use it to segue right into one of the other topics of the three that I had tonight, which is attracting and shedding. And it's the concept that when manifesting and working on all of these things that we want in the new year, we also have to be willing to look at what are we willing to shed, what are we willing to get rid of, so that we have room for the new blessings that we are looking to attract. What can we work on? What can we give up to make room for better habits? Just like when I first started, when I brought up the better health or lose weight. Okay, if you're attracting a better body and better health, what are you going to have to shed? What might you have to give up? What habits may you have to adjust to allow that new habit to fulfill itself properly. Yes, I want to lose weight. Well, are you willing to give up your morning routine of 2 Krispy Kreme donuts and a Mountain Dew? Well, but I like those. Okay, pick your likes. You can have them. You're just going to have to work much harder to overcome that habit. And it's another look in the mirror and become the person who is worthy of having what you're asking for. I want to have a Ferrari F40. Okay. Here's the income you're going to need, and you're going to have to learn how to drive a manual transmission. Well, I don't know how to drive a manual transmission. Then you're going to have to put that into part of your yearly classes for the year. And you're probably going to have to shed some habits that are taking away your income that you're going to need to be able to have that vehicle. So again, it's the attracting and shedding as we're growing. Squirrel just delivered another analogy. Have any of you heard of, I believe is it lobsters that have to occasionally drop their shell to grow a new one? And during that time, they are the most vulnerable, but they can't stay inside of the shell that they've created because they're outgrowing it, and it becomes painfully uncomfortable. And so they shed the old shell so that they can have a new one. And here we are, first of the year. What are we willing to shed so that we can grow into something newer, bigger, better? And that leaves 2 minis. Any quick input, ahas, epiphanies on that? See if I can fit in one more topic. Or should I just throw in the topic, and then if you guys want to come back to any of these things, we can. The other topic that I had was reset schedules. And with the holidays that we've all survived, we're all here. Yes, January 2nd. Chances are our schedules got a little beat up over the and so in doing so, it can take some people some time to get their bodies, their mindsets and everything back into their schedules. Or if they've had a few too many chiefs in the building and too many cooks in the kitchen, getting themselves back into who they knew they were, wanted to be, inspired to be. And one trick that I've learned, especially with schedules, is finding universal anchors. When I travel a lot, one of the very first things that I do, and I learned this luckily early, is I do everything I can to witness a sunrise or a sunset as quickly as I can right after I land, because it's a universal phenomenon. Da, 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 phenomena. Okay. But in doing so, your body, your mind goes, oh, the sun is coming up. It's the start of the day. It doesn't matter that you're 2, 3, 10, 12-hour difference in time zones. Your body has witnessed something that is anchored with the start of the day, the end of the day. And as such, I've rarely had jet lag. Now, in recovering from the holidays, we can start looking for what are the anchors that we can say, okay, all of that hullabub, we've survived, we've gotten past it. How do we get back into our schedule, but avoid our comfort zone? Because we may have recognized how many comfort zones we had before the holidays hit. And now that the holidays came in and gave that a little stir up and a little mix up, when you look at January 1st, 2025, what changes have you made? And it could even be in schedule. Where do you schedule in meditating time? Especially if you've never done it. Where do you schedule in the once a month mental health activity? Where do you schedule in that 1 year, year defining event? That's all schedule, and you're resetting your schedule. And one of the best things that can happen is what we just went through, where your past 11 or 10 months of scheduling kind of got a little kick in the privates. Family drops in and the holidays drop in and this is closed and we're going to do pickups on Tuesdays instead of Monday, and school is closed, but now it's coming back in, and all of those things that took our schedule and kind of gave it a little butt whooping. We can now use it to our advantage to reset the schedule that works best for our new life, our new year, our new goals. Avoid going right back into the rut. Tracks are really nice on a record, but you know right where they're going to lead. Same last track. If you got to reset the needle, put a new record on. And that brings us four minis past my hour. All right, Fran, I'm so glad that you were able to show your beautiful face for the first one in 24. Take care. Anybody got any ahas, epiphanies on the last two topics I slammed you with? Mark.
I've been listening to what you folks are saying, and again, this is definitely been interesting, and what Holly was looking for, and Jade had mentioned, using hypnosis to get in the right state. Journaling is about, understanding what it is you want, and and to manifest the things you want in your life. And I have a little story to tell. When I was a wee lad, just after the fall of Rome, my sister took me in a ride in her '69 Corvette. And I was about 10 years old, and I fell in love. And every time one went by, like, ooh, I'm going to own one of those one day. I didn't know anything about manifestation or anything. But every time one went by, one of those C3s with the long noses, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to. But until I learned perceptual position, where you can't be seeing yourself in a relationship, walking hand in hand with him or her. And I actually had to imagine myself in the car, driving the car, experiencing all those feelings. And that, because, the being in the state or, journaling is going to get you to, recognize the vibe. But until you change your perceptual position, you're just watching yourself do it. If you're actually imagine yourself in that place, experiencing those things, that's when you start to manifest. And I now have a 1975 Corvette sitting in my garage, and I've had it there for the last 20 years because I changed my perceptual position. And I think, because if you're watching yourself walking on the beach with, that person, your mind kind of rejects that as not real. But if you're walking hand in hand, feeling the other person's hand, it's changing your perceptual position. So you're just not watching these things manifest, watching, putting yourself in the right state, and journaling is great. But if you're not changing your perceptual position, it'll never materialize. It'll never manifest. That's my
I'm
input.
so glad you brought that up, Mark. And I'm going to jump in quick before Elijah here. Even like you said with the car, go to the dealerships, find those cars, and if nothing else, take it for a test drive. That's part of the research. What you might find out after watching Back to the Future, everybody wanted a DeLorean, including me, like, oh, if I could only have a DeLorean. And then I got to drive a DeLorean. Not the car for me. No. You could, if I won a DeLorean in a contest, the only thing I would be happy for is the money that I would get selling it as quickly as possible. Because they're designed for people 5'9" and under, for one. And they were a performance nightmare. POS. One of the worst cars I've ever driven. But I got to say I drove one. And that's part of the research. And I'm glad that you brought out, I could have all the posters, all the pictures, all the DeLoreans, all the above. But I wasn't ready for it because I didn't really understand what it was. And one of the things I told one of my clients, if you get what you ask for and it wasn't what you thought it was, you're not done asking. Ask for something else. It's okay. Call it research. Elijah. There he is.
Hello.
Hello.
Happy New Year from London, boys and girls. Is it still new? We're like 3 days in. It's old news now, right?
Yes.
Anyway, I digress. Sorry. I wanted to add to what Mark said because I noticed a distinction in this, the visualizing in associated versus dissociated. I think when you are visualizing the result you want and the thing you want to manifest, you should be associated, just like he said. He's absolutely right. However, I would like to add that when you are visualizing a process or a a series of things you're going to be doing. And on, like, let's take the losing weight example, right? When I visualize myself having the body I want, I will be associated and seeing it through my own eyes. However, when I'm visualizing myself doing exercise or eating the right thing, and I'm in the process of one of the steps of the many repeatable steps that I'm going to have to do to get there, then I should be dissociated and seeing myself doing it. It's very important. So end result, fully associated, part of the process, see yourself in the picture. Just wanted to add that in. It's a fine distinction not many people make, and I found it works flawlessly that way.
Awesome. Appreciate you sharing that.
Well,
Lenore.
can I respond?
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Please.
Don't mean to interrupt, but you know, there was a story I heard about this woman who was going to all the seminars, and she said that her stated goal was to marry a rich guy. And she went out, you know, she did all the self work, she did all the manifestation, she did all the journaling, she did all the state control. She came back 6 months later, and she had married a guy named Rich, but he didn't have any money. So she came back and she went through the whole process again. She said, "Wait, I want to marry a rich man." Went away, came back. She had married a rich man, but the guy was a skinflint, wouldn't give her a nickel. And so she was coming back for the third time because she didn't really know what she wanted. And the instructor said, "Well, you had 3 wishes, you've used 2. You got 1 left to get it right this time." So that's just the story I wanted to rebut with.
I actually call that the genie curse or the leprechaun curse. And I tell people, especially my clients, when you're doing your journals, especially if you're looking for your person, you have to diffuse as many bombs as possible to make sure that the leprechaun or the genie doesn't do exactly what you just described. You do as much research as you can and take the pressure off of the marrying so that you can see them without the rose-colored glasses. In fact, one of my clients right now is celebrating the fact that she's finished her 1-year triple P, hasn't met her person yet. But the way she looks at people and understands people and what it has done for herself has taken her 13 levels up. And she isn't in a hurry anymore to find her person. But I tell you what, when she does, that person is going to be a man I want to meet, because she has learned her value to an extreme level, an amazing, awesome level. But she has also learned how to read people and listen to what they're saying. In fact, she said that it was kind of funny. She said, men use words to reel women in, but their actions show what their intentions are. And she has learned that at a level that is so high now that she's using it at work. And her work is a brand new work that magically showed up matching her, some of the descriptions of her sources of income journal. And I like what Jade just shared. I think a good question is the why. Why do I want this? Answer is usually a feeling, because we love the feeling, or because we love the feeling, or because we're trying to avoid some other feeling. It's helpful so we don't manifest from a place of avoidance, or we may manifest what we are avoiding so hard. And I think that's part of why I put in attracting and shedding, so that you take a good look in the mirror of what might I need to change or get rid of to have room for what I'm wanting to manifest. Sava.
I think Lenora was before me.
Oh, I don't know if she's still there. She.
Lenora, are you still there? Oh, maybe she's not. I wanted to say that you have to kiss a lot of frogs to find a prince, and for men, you have to kiss a lot of princesses to make sure they're not frogs. And to me personally, it's all about immersing myself in experience. If I thought I like women who have certain type of body, and then I visualize all of that and I write in the books and yada yada yada, and then I really find a woman like that, and then I realize, oh, something else is what I prefer better. It's really, to me, about putting myself out there, meeting people, so many groups, so many different people I met recently. And so online, I only attend this group because I love you guys, and my own webinar. And I think that's that for online. I take qigong classes online sometimes because it's really fun. But all the time, meeting people in person, getting to know people, and not labeling. I think really the key is what TJ said: not labeling things as dates. Because as you label, let's say a child, you label a child, you limit a child.
Yep.
That's that.
I appreciate you sharing that. And yes, that's why I let them know that it's research. You're just trying to figure out what it is about people, what you like, what you don't like, all the above. As a professional photographer, I got to spend time around some extremely attractive representatives of the female species. But because it was in a non-dating situation, I got to see who they were. And some of them were full-on candy-coated psychosis. Like, wow, you're cute on the outside and scary on the inside. And I think if I would have been in a different environment meeting them, it would have taken me a lot longer to see what the inside actually looked like.
You see, that's the other problem with dating. Once people start seeing the interaction as a date, they start showing the pina colada side of themselves, the side they want you to see rather than what's genuine, right?
Yep.
You want to see the true colors shining through, right? That's the problem with dating. Well,
Yep.
one of the problems with dating.
One of the problems. And they put on their most pretty mask, but that mask is kind of heavy and it can be kind of hard to breathe in. And so if you spend enough time with them and you watch them closely, you'll see them take the mask down a little bit to catch a few breaths. But if it's not a mask, or if it's not a date, typically they won't put that mask on quite as much. Holly.
I just want to second that one. I will say, for my lack of personal dating experience, I've done a lot of observing. And there was a guy in a group that I used to hang out with, and he had a crush on one girl, but there was another girl he liked to impress who was a little bit darker, shall we say. When the girl he had a crush on was in the group, I will tell you, he was the sweetest guy. He was, if we happened to be walking around outside and he saw a homeless guy, he'd go up, give him money, see how they're doing. He'd be nice to the servers. When she wasn't there, and the other girl wasn't there, when both of them weren't there, he was just kind of a little bit of a jerk. And then when the girl he liked wasn't there and the girl he liked to impress was there, he was the biggest jerk. He'd go up to the the servers, he would say the worst things to him in the world. So yeah, I will definitely say when they've decided they like somebody, even if it's not on a date, even in the group dynamics, sometimes they're not showing their real version of themselves. So
that's why I call it research. And my question to you, Holly, if you had called your time with him a date, what do you think you would have missed?
I probably would have missed the entire learning experience. I mean, he wasn't interested in me, so I didn't ever think about it that way. It's very clear who he was interested in. But no, I will say I've hung out in a lot of groups, and I've learned a lot of things from hanging out in those groups. Most of the groups tend to pair off by the time I'm done. That's how they usually dissolve, and I'm just the one person left single. But, at least I've been in the groups.
But again, that's part of the research. And when you think you're ready to have somebody to do things with, having your journal of who the best person to do those things with done, you'll find somebody to hang out with and just do things with. And
I will completely agree.
And it has to be for you. I can't tell you what your person should be. I can't tell Jade what her person should be. I can't tell Elijah who his person should be, or even Savo. Because that comes straight down to values and criteria. Some people just want somebody who's quiet, who doesn't want to go out, who enjoys sitting at home and doing puzzles, watching movies, and ordering takeout. Other people have to have a person who the idea of doing what I just described is death of 1,000 paper cuts. That's also why if you pull up, if you ask Google to show you a picture of every car that's available, how long would it take for those pictures to load up? And inside of every one of those pictures, if you only got to pick one of them, you would write it down first so that you could start systematically chopping down what division you're looking for. And then your emotional refractory period starts opening up and seeing that. And then you can start hanging around where those are most commonly found. And it doesn't mean you buy the first one you see. Test drives don't cost that much, especially if it's research. Savo, how many vehicles have you driven in your lifetime, do you think?
Many, many, many.
And I'm not talking figuratively, I'm talking automobiles.
Yeah, probably 10,000.
Yeah. And there are certain characteristics from each one that if the powers to be came down tomorrow and said, Savo, you don't get to test drive, you don't get to change vehicles anymore, you have to pick one. Would you take a day, a week, a month, 2 months, 3 months? If you had up to a year, Elijah, I want a tank. But if you could, yes, or the Batmobile, I agree. But if you had a year, what would that breakdown description look like? Knowing that that vehicle exists and you just get to tell Google, this is what I came up with. And Google would go, well, that vehicle was last seen in Florida.
That's a great question, TJ. It's a really good question because what it takes me now, sometimes when I go to the car auction, sometimes 3 to 5 seconds to purchase a vehicle that's north of $10,000. And there's so many things that go in my subconscious where I see how, the wear and tear, and I also see the announcements and I see who else is bidding on the car. And it's the very same thing in dating. And there was a time in my life when I was trying to find a perfect, woman for me. And then there was a time in my life when I said, fuck it. And I just went on so many dates in such a short period of time. I learned more than ever. And also when that date came, and I met someone who was more important in my life, I was in that dating time, going out and just being, I knew so many places around. I knew so many, and I felt so comfortable in my skin. I also recognized my value. I recognized, what do I have that I can bring to the table, and also, just confidence went up. But same thing as if, like you said, cars or martial arts. If I spar with so many people, and someone comes to spar, and I go, oh, it's just another Tuesday in the office, and as opposed to just doing it first time and just trying to prepare for something mentally without immersing myself. So the last thing I want to say is, like, the one thing that I said to my mentor when he was giving a speech. So I was just letting people know who he is, and I said, well, you can't know the water unless you feel the water. I can talk about the water. You can't know the cake unless you bite the cake. It's about the experience, involving yourself in it with all 5 senses, and maybe more than 5. But being there is a hell of a ride. It's fun, and without that, I think we can sit and visualize all day long, but the visualizations have to come from somewhere too, and that's experience.
And I think one of the things that the research does, it protects against FOMO, fear of missing out. If it's just research, it's just research. If it's a flat out quick purchase, and now you're feeling like you're stuck with it, well, God, what if oh, look at that one, but that model has, oh, and look at that. And FOMO can really ruin an amazing gift. And so I think the more you prep for it, the less chance you have of FOMO. Elijah just shared, empty your mind, be formless, shapeless like water. If you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water in a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. Bruce Lee. Yes, great one to share. The other thing that I like is when water is boiling, what you put into it can change. Put an egg into water, it becomes hard. Put coffee into water, water becomes coffee. You put noodles into boiling water and they become soft. It's not the water, it's what you're made of. How do you prepare yourself to handle hot water, because it's going to happen? And that's part of when I brought up reset schedules. Are you going to dive right back into the exact same groove rut that you had 11, 10 months ago, whatever? or is it time for something new and challenging? I'm speaking for myself. A lot of this came from because Tina and I talked about, 24 or 23 and realized that 23 was our year to just try and get things evened out. We had some stuff going on. Her mother passed away, and I spent a whole lot of time doing a full remodel on an apartment on our property. And we managed to get some things done still in that year. But now that's back there. And it's time to reset our schedules and set some new things in place. And one of them, we realized that we had date night, I think, twice all last year. So that's going to be put on the schedule. I didn't go to Hypno Thoughts Live last year because life was a little complicated. Had a few things going on, yeah. So I'm going this year, and I'll be presenting. So again, beyond what it is about me, this is more, how do we help the people that are watching, and how do I help you guys? How do we all lift each other up to push for January 1st, 2025, going, whoo, that was a fun year. And I know that Holly had some questions written down, and we're down to 28 minutes left in the hour. So unless you guys have any more input, ahas, epiphanies on the stuff that we've done, I'd like Holly to throw in one of her questions. And real quick, Kevin, you dropped a YouTube on there, but I can't. What's that one for, out of curiosity?
That is the a YouTube media producer known as Melody Sheep, and he did an auto-tuned version of the Bruce Lee "Be Water, My Friend."
Cool, awesome. Now you guys can watch that as well. Holly, are you there? What are your questions?
I mean, I'm here. I can feel kind of guilty taken the whole time since we kind of spent the whole first half answering my questions.
No.
I'll throw this out there. So I had just been kind of contemplating when I was setting my goals. So there's just 3 of these. So what is the difference between, the first one is conscientiousness and being controlling? What is the difference between letting go and being lazy? And then also, it's not quite in there, but it's just kind of in there. What's the difference between having goals and manifesting, and is there a difference?
Before we start, would you do me a favor and type those 3 into the chat so that we can keep track of the 3 different deals? And if anybody on the call has an answer for her quick, please go ahead. Jade.
I personally don't really think there's much of a difference between goals and manifesting. I think that as little babies and children, it's like when we first, sort of learn how to walk, it's like maybe we see something or we see other people doing it and we want to do that. And so we attempt to do it and we might fall on our butt and then we get up and do it again. And I think that there's, learning that happens in the process of a goal or manifesting anything. And part of that learning is the tension that happens of the learning process and learning how to let go of the tension as well during the learning process. So really it's like allowing everything that is in the way of that to come up while continuing to hold to that outcome. And I really think what even allows us to move towards anything in the first place is the sort of images that we have in our mind and the feelings that we get that come along with that of what it's going to be like when we get to that goal, and then continuing to hold to that no matter, what comes up. So I don't really see a difference between manifesting and goals, but I don't know, that's just me. Maybe I might be missing something there.
Well, and thank you for sharing it. That's why I love this platform, is because we need to hear from all different sides. Elijah.
So I'm going to take a stab at the middle one, the letting go versus being lazy. Letting go for me is very much a feeling of detachment and separateness from whatever the thing is. Whereas being lazy, in order to even describe yourself as lazy, it has to still be on your mind, right? It has to be like, oh, I should be doing this, but I'm not doing it because and it's anything but detached. It's not doing it while still thinking about it. So I think that's the kind of key difference between describing oneself as lazy versus truly letting something go. I think if that makes sense, does that make sense to people, or do I need to expand on that at all? Yeah? Good. Okay.
Well said. I wanted to throw in real quick. When you started out, it almost felt like Jeopardy. Yeah, Bob, I'll take letting go versus lazy for 800, please.
We don't really have Jeopardy in the UK. I have seen it on my trips to America, and I know what it is.
Yep.
But we don't really have that here.
Yeah, but you guys have some amazing other ones. Mark.
I want to take a stab at the conscientiousness versus controlling. Controlling behavior is always indicative of insecurity. When a person is controlling, it usually indicates they're very insecure. Bosses that are micromanaging all the time, they're very insecure. Whereas conscientiousness kind of fits into my definition of confidence, which is control, but it's self-control. When you're conscientious about doing, your self-work or whatever, it's about self-control. So conscientiousness is at the opposite end of the spectrum from controlling. And but it is control, but it's self-control. Being conscientious is about controlling yourself and following through and doing the self-work in any situation. Someone who is conscientious is usually very confident, or they're becoming confident, whereas someone who is controlling is very insecure, and they can all they can become is more insecure. That's my 2 cents.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that, Mark. Who else? Yes.
I'm sorry, I had to step away quickly. At least for letting go versus lazy, I love what I heard Jade share about goals and manifesting. I could definitely agree with the not a distinction. I think it's just the label, and you change the label, and who's to say one is different than the other? Did you get the outcome you wanted ultimately? And letting go versus lazy, for me, is it important to you? Are you at peace with it? When it comes to lazy, I often find like, I don't care, whatever. If that's the snap response you're having, it sounds like that there might be emotion behind that versus it is what it is, and having that different tonal response in moving beyond something. So that for me was the distinction between the two.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Lenora. Anybody else? I'm going to take goals versus manifesting for 200, please. First thing that came to mind was goals. You can say, I want to do this. Manifesting, I think, is where you say, I'm going to do this, and here is how I'm going to prepare myself for this. I want this. This is what I'm going to open up for this to happen. The other thing about goals, I think if I got the quote right, goals without a timeline are just wishes. You can write down or come up with all these different things you want to do, but if you don't put a plan of action in place, it's just a wish. And I think manifesting takes that process a step or two further, where you set a goal, you set a timeline, and then you take a look in the mirror. What do I have to do? Who do I have to become to have this appear into my life? Does that make sense?
All great answers, by the way. Thank you, everybody. I've got follow-up questions.
Savo.
So one lady was saying in the group that I was a part of, something between the lines that masculinity is toxic and that there is control involved in it. And there is this negative connotation that's connected to control. Yet we all want to control our feelings. We all want to control things around us in terms of our job, business, place where we live. And so I said, what if we are in the airplane and there is a bad guy and he's bullying you? And guess what? You want my masculinity to be on board. You want me to step up. And also it's connected to conscientiousness, because if we don't embody that, the strength and ability to control the environment in a way in which is right, doing the right thing. If old ladies, drops bag of groceries and now apples are going down the street and I come and pick up the apples, I am controlling the environment in a way. And maybe I wasn't even asked to do that. However, if there is, in the previous example of something happening in the airplane, let's say if there is no security or the security is busy, or there would be too many bad guys that nobody would be able to stop if we don't have. And then masculinity is associated to men, so I'm going to say enough strong men who are going to do the right thing for the right reason, which is really connected to conscientiousness. Now, control has negative connotation because especially, let's say, talking about relationships, we can see how people can control and try to control the other person, their life, their desires, what they want to do. So yeah, that's going in that route. So I would say if we zoom out, we can see control, or good and bad, whatever you want to say, yin and yang, and then zooming in on conscientiousness as definitely a positive trait, and also presupposes strong moral values.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Jade.
I love how Salvo just brought up the masculine, and I think it's so perfect for what you were just talking about as far as, manifestation and goals, because when it comes to, the masculine and feminine, masculine is very like taking action, directed action, and movement. And the feminine is about receiving. And I think you need both in order to create what you're wanting. And so the feminine portion of it is a lot more like the manifestation as far as allowing yourself to become receptive to it internally, and then taking the actions and the steps with the masculine, which is the external part of it. And you need both of them together in union in order to, create anything that you're wanting to create your experience or reality.
Absolutely. Elijah.
Yeah, just again, as these three different, this versus that and this versus the other, and they do also, there is like an overlapping as well, I've noticed. Like, for example, controlling with the ing has like a negative connotation of kind of trying to be forceful almost, or imposing one's will over a situation or event or someone else or something like that, versus true control, which in fact involves a whole lot of letting go. Because the people who truly are in control are able to let go. And even, for example, when it comes to like doing hypnosis and sessions with clients and things like that, the best clients are the ones who understand that they can fully let go and enjoy an immersive experience and allow someone else to, take the wheel and drive for a little while and guide them, knowing full well that if they feel that something is inappropriate, that they could retake that control at any moment, right? Because that's what, and it's that ability to let go that in fact gives them the control, right? Versus if you're trying to kind of force it and hold on to it, then you're not really in control. You're very much, a hair away from losing control. So I find that fascinating how these are all, even though it's one versus the other, they're all kind of interconnected as well. It's a fascinating question.
Definitely the yin and the yang. I appreciate you sharing that. Mark.
I like everything I've heard here tonight. I agree with the masculine and the feminine, and I don't buy into that term toxic masculinity. I feel that there are some immature jerks, and but that idea that masculinity as such can be toxic, my mind rejects that. What Savo said. I did want to mention an aside, Mike, is to try to make it here because I think you people are very wise, and I appreciate everything that I've heard and said. And just as an aside, a little funny to close it out is I had a client that I mentioned, that phrase that Savo used earlier about you got to kiss a lot of frogs before you meet your handsome prince. And she sighed and she looked to one side. She goes, "Yeah, sleep with him too." It was just a moment.
Yep.
Sometimes you get those kinds of responses, when you're in rapport in a session. So,
Well,
that's it.
I'm glad you brought that up, Mark, because I do have to delve on that edge and let them know that they also need to describe how their partner is built and what kind of sex they enjoy. Because you don't want somebody who's if you put it on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the complete freakazoid nympho, and 1 being total vanilla, once a year on your birthday, that's it. You want to make sure that you're meeting with the person that you're going to be with, because that's going to be part of your time together as well. So it comes down to all of the things that we've talked about. Yes, how, at what level of the balance of masculine and feminine is your person, and what balance of feminine and masculine do you have to be to be able to handle that person.
And what part of masculine and feminine are you? And what part of that is hidden, suppressed, and denied?
Yes,
How
exactly.
much range do you have?
Yes. All of this stuff that very unfortunately too few people have taken the time to even think about, which is why they have to come to people like us. I've dated the same jerk 27 times. Well, are you ready to look in the mirror? Well, it's not me. Well, there is one common denominator. Just saying. Just saying. And we got 9 minis left in the first triple T of 24. Any ahas, epiphanies, quick questions we can address before it's time for us to bid adieu?
Dude, I love common denominator story. It's really good. First time I heard it.
Well, that I had to do the same thing. I got married for the very first time in 21. In fact, my anniversary is coming up here in a couple of weeks. And I've been in a number. My mom will verify. I've been in a number of relationships, and I've dated some amazing women. And the fact that I was still single 3 years ago, I had to look in the mirror and do some strong in perspective and went, what's the common denominator? Oh, yeah, that would be me. That would be me. I should probably see what's wrong. Well, not wrong. What do I have to work on? And luckily, well, it's been about 9 years ago now. I was put in the right place at the right time with the right people and was introduced to all this type of stuff and started seeing all of the little things that I needed to upgrade if I was going to find my person. In fact, Triple P was designed for me, by me, and that's where I went, wow, that actually kind of worked. I got the proof right there. And then I started applying it for my clients, and it started working quite well.
Question for you, TJ. How
Yes.
much, if you're open to answer, of course, how much did you learn from Triple T, and what did you learn?
I learned, I learned that a lot of it came down to growing up, stories and BS that my best friends told me, thinking that I wasn't enough. Some of the trauma that I went through in my senior year when I attached a huge story onto basically my first real love, my first real girlfriend. And I had not dealt with that stuff. I just kind of went, whatever. And so I learned a whole lot about push-pull. which we've talked about a couple of times on Triple T, and I became a classic push-pull. So I know how to help people with it. And so I had to, for the first time in my life, allow somebody into that inner ring where I was vulnerable. And here I am, married way out of my pay grade. And I'm still working on myself because the more I work with clients, the more I realize things that I forgot to work on. I think that's one of the things about this profession, and correct me if I'm wrong, the more you work with humans in their natural environment and you help them deal with the demons, it's almost like the universe goes, you know that one demon that you've been avoiding this whole time? Let me introduce Jack. Yo, Jack, show him your demon. Well, I know what this demon is. I'm well acquainted with this demon. Jack, all you got to do is blah, blah, blah. I should probably blah, blah, blah with you, Jack. Congratulations, Jack. We've fixed your demon. And in doing so, I looked in the mirror and it looked exactly like mine. And the more we do this, the more we see the demon in the other people. And we go, I recognize that. Let me help you. Well, what do you know about it? Here, see this scar right here? Yeah, that was from that one. And this one right here.
You remember the scene in Jaws?
Huh?
Do you remember the scene from Jaws where they're like
From Jaws?
where they're
Oh,
comparing
yeah.
scars? Like this scar on my arm was from an alligator, and he's like, "Oh, that's nothing. That's nothing. Look, this one here on my leg is from a shark." And the other guy's like, "No, it's nothing. This one right here was from Missy Kleinfeld. She broke my heart in second grade."
Yes, yeah, exactly.
TJ, can I just say something about what you were sharing earlier about the demon?
Yes, please.
One of the things that in the past when I was literally calling shadow parts demons, and it was so hard for me to change anything, because one of the things that my coach told me is, instead of calling it a demon, call it like a shadow part. And because she said to me that you have, and her name is Emerald. She's one of the like really famous coach if you go on YouTube and find shadow work. So she said, if you want to work through that shadow, pierce your shadow, you have to have compassion and acceptance for that part of what you call demon in the other person. And if you call it like that, how can you have compassion and love for the demon? It's like, and then she goes to me, why don't we call it just the shadow part? So that was just some linguistics that I would like to just point out.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you shared that, because it goes right back to nothing means anything until you give it a label. And Holly and I were talking just before it started here about problems versus challenges. Well, my values and criteria tell me that challenges are much easier to approach than problems. But she pointed out the potential that people who love math may prefer the word problem because it was always now solve this math problem.
Mhm.
And they can look at it and go, well, that just takes, and I can find the solution. I look at it as a problem may have one solution, challenges may have three solutions, and I can attack it from different areas. So the label also has to fit the person on how they utilize it. Although one of the challenges we do have is with time, and my respect for yours. And that brings us right up to a minute past the top of the second hour, where those of you who have been around, and I'm so glad you're here again for the start of this year, have heard me say many times, thank you so much for your precious commodity of time, because I can't give it back to you. And hopefully this investment of your time was worth it and that you got something out of it. And if you did, please go on YouTube, help me out, click the like, the subscribe, all the above. By the way, those of you watching on YouTube, love you, Mom. And share this with others. I don't do this for me, I just do it because the universe gave me the platform. And here you guys are making it better every time you show up. And I appreciate you guys more than I have the vocabulary to express. So until next week, when we get to do this all over again with a brand new tie, I want you guys to go out and live the absolute best life that you can come up with, and then take it even a little bit further. Be nice to people, and just know that you are loved and appreciated. Until then, take care. Bye.